Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael, and today we're going to look at some more drama-filled stories from Reddit. If you do enjoy listening to these, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's begin. Our first post is brought to us by user Iron Potato Man. The post was created 5 years ago in the EntitledParents subreddit. It's titled, "How I Started a Revolution in My Entitled Family. All I Wanted Was My Sisters." I am currently in custody of my two little sisters, Amy, who is 17, and Liza, who is 8. Those are not their real names for obvious reasons. I am a 29-year-old male and we live in Australia. I am Potato, as Liza calls me. This is basically the story of how my family felt they were entitled to both of my sisters' bodies, and I wouldn't stand for that. I want to warn anyone who has faced abuse in the past, as parts of their story may trigger some people. And to anyone who has faced abuse in the past, I do feel deeply sorry for you. The main part of the story takes place about a year ago. I'd moved out 6 years ago and moved to another state for work and study. I was really slack about keeping in contact with my family, which is probably why this went on for so long. When I do think back to the time before I moved out, I didn't treat Amy the best. And if I hadn't moved out and had so little contact with my family, I may have turned out just as entitled and as much of a horrible person. I came back to visit for a grandparent's birthday. After spending so long away, I spent the morning catching up with aunts, uncles, cousins, my parents, and Liza. Now, this was the first time I'd realized the oddities of my family. Perhaps it was the change in environment. A few of my roommates had little sisters and whatnot, but it was the first time I'd noticed how quiet the little girls of my family were. I guess I'd always just thought of Amy as shy and quiet, but my little cousins were so much the same. Polite, shy, quiet, and obedient. However, at the time, I brushed this off. After a few hours, I realized that Amy was nowhere to be seen all day. The party was at my parents' house, so this confused me. I slipped inside to see if she was cooped up in her room like a lot of 16-year-olds would be, talking to friends or doing assessments. What I found is a memory that will haunt me forever. My oldest uncle on my father's side was lying over my sister, who was quite clearly in a lot of pain and struggling not to cry as he pinned her beneath him. I completely lost it, as any brother would, shouting at him to get off her and out of her room. I scared the hell out of both of them, but in that moment, I was honestly ready to kill my uncle. Amy was pretty messed up in the head when I tried consoling her. She was covered in scars and had a rash that I later found out was an allergic reaction. She was allergic to strawberries. She didn't speak and looked at me as if she expected me to hurt her too. Her room was dimly lit, the blinds taped closed to her wall, and all the things she'd had when I left were gone, leaving her bedroom cold and empty. To add insult to injury, she was a month pregnant. When I demanded an explanation from my parents, they said it was my uncle's right, and my father pointed out one of my 11-year-old cousins sitting quietly with her parents and told me to have fun. I stormed off back to Amy's room, quietly packed her a bag of necessities, and managed to sneak her out of the house and into my car before doing the same with Liza. Part of me wanted to get all my cousins out too, but my main focus was on Amy right now, who sat trembling in the back of my car. I drove them both to the closest police station to report what happened. I'll skip most of the details of the legal battle that ensued, but my family did not take kindly to being outed for what they were doing. They said that it was a tradition that spanned generations, and there shouldn't be anything wrong with tradition. Amy and Liza were put into temporary foster care, and Amy was a wreck. To her, everyone could and would hurt her, and I got reports every few hours that she was having a panic attack. 3 of my uncles went to jail for a very long time. I got a fair bit of money out of a range of family members, full custody of both Amy and Liza with no visitation, and my parents had to pay for any therapy costs, medication, and medical needs for both of them. My family was torn in two by this. Many of my aunts left their husbands with their children after finally having the courage to follow me, and the uncles who had married into the family took their wives, who had also been abused, and cut ties. I still keep in contact with these family members and am grateful for their support. I'm glad my cousins are safer now. Even some of the older guys who had been brought up thinking it was okay to treat women that way took themselves into counseling once they realized just how messed up it was. I've had more than one instance where they admitted to hurting Amy and apologized. I've accepted their apologies, as these cousins did their best to take their siblings or other cousins out of harmful environments. Now, I do believe some part of the ruling protected the younger men of the family, provided they see some form of a mental health professional. Since they grew up thinking that this was all normal, they didn't end up in jail, but did end up on some list of possible offenders. No one is sure who fathered Amy's child, but she had her pregnancy terminated as we were told her physical and mental health would not cope with carrying a baby she ultimately would unlikely care for. She did consent at the time, and her psychologist brought it up once she was doing better. She confirmed that she would have no love for the baby due to the circumstances in which she fell pregnant. For 6 years, Amy had been physically, mentally, and emotionally abused in every way conceivable. This mostly came from my father's 4 brothers and brother-in-law who married into the family. My parents both stood by and let this happen, offering no support for Amy. During the case, my uncles argued it was their birthright being born into their family, and it was simply Amy's rite of passage before she was married off to one of my uncle's mates at 18. They used her allergy as a form of torture and manipulation, wanting her to be silent and obedient. They would press strawberries against her skin whenever she said a word and force her to eat them when she stepped too far out of line. A lot of my aunts from my father's side admitted to enduring this treatment too, although most of them were lucky and didn't have allergies to exploit. I honestly can't even begin to explain everything wrong with Amy because of their behavior. Liza, for the most part, was okay. She needed a little therapy as she was being groomed into compliance and taught that what she would experience was expected, but Amy had completely shut down. It took 2 months before I could even get her to speak. She trusts me now, and we often sit down and I let her talk and open up about whatever she feels comfortable with. Her stories usually have me struggling to hold back tears while I comfort her. I did get Amy a service dog a few months ago, tailored toward the emotional support she needs on a regular basis. Lickety Split honestly is the goodest of good doggos. She knows exactly when she's needed and is a massive help when it comes to calming Amy's anxiety, especially in public. We've had more than one encounter with unrelated entitled parents thinking they or their kid deserves her dog more than her. Let me know if you want these stories published too, because I've seen people like to read about service dog related incidents. But anyone who does think that can honestly fight me. No one deserves her dog more than her. On one occasion, one of my aunts and her husband went to jail and tried taking Lickety Split because their money paid for her. I told her if she ever came near my property again, I would call the police as there was a restraining order against her towards both my sisters. Later, she came back and tried to poison Lickety Split with tainted meat, but one of my lovely neighbors caught her and chased her off. Police were called and she is now in jail too after having to pay a fine and some money to me. At this point, I'm pretty well acquainted with the legal system and sued her. My family still tried to get my sisters out of my care, reporting me for everything from animal abuse to drug trafficking. They planted drugs in an identical stuffed toy to Amy's comfort toy and left it in the yard. But Amy would never do that, so I knew something was up immediately. Home security systems work wonders. I've become pretty friendly with the local police officers who have to inspect their claims, but they know I'd never do anything to endanger my custody over the girls. I will admit though that I have done things to hurt my bond with them, like yelling when stressed and throwing things from time to time. I'm not perfect, and Amy has told me that although these moments do scare her, she doesn't feel endangered being near me when they happen. I also spoil them a little when they do happen. Now, the reason this ended on the AITA subreddit is because a few weeks ago, my mother contacted me saying she wanted to talk. I was hesitant, but agreed, and we met up in the next town over. This way, I couldn't be followed home. My mother explained how she was in the process of divorcing my father, and she wanted to have a relationship with me and my sisters, with an emphasis on mending her bond with Amy. She explained how she was pressured into the marriage after she got pregnant with me and never wanted that life for her daughters. I flat out told her no, which is something several members of my family disagreed with. She could have done literally anything to support Amy emotionally with what was happening. Instead, Amy was shunned and isolated except when she needed to cook, clean, or provide service to the family. They even went as far as to berate her whenever she tried to confide in my mom that she was in pain or scared. Amy was well past her breaking point when I took her and had even planned on killing herself less than a week after my visit. My mother argued that she had the same rights as the other members of my family who had left. They didn't wait a year after losing custody to try and fight for them. I really don't even need to give a reason. I have custody and she does not. Members of AITA convinced me that when Amy is in a better place mentally and Liza is older, I bring it up with them and leave the decision in their hands. I've been told Amy will be a dependent well after she turns 18. Her mind doesn't function properly, so there is no risk of her mother getting into contact behind my back, even when she's an adult. While Amy does have a phone and a computer, she doesn't have any social media as she doesn't want any chance of her family trying to contact her as they've threatened her with many forms of torture in the past. This story doesn't have a slam dunk ending. I have my sisters and they're in a safe environment where they'll get to grow up as kids. Amy is getting the help she needs and is slowly making her way out of the tower she built to protect herself in, but she knows there isn't a rush to come out. I'll work with her at the pace she sets. She's still discovering her own interests, but she likes just reading a book and having tea. She also has a small collection of stuffed animals that she adores and takes one with her everywhere. She is sensitive to texture, so the feeling comforts her, and once a week we sit down to try to find older bears she likes. Honestly, I've loved helping Amy discover herself. She lost a lot of her ability to think and feel for herself during this time, and watching her find her favorite book genre or her favorite types of music is a great feeling. I live for the days she manages a smile. I'd be willing to answer most questions, so if you want to know anything, just ask, as I want to bring awareness that these things are still happening to other kids, but obviously there are certain things I'd rather keep to myself for the girl's sake. Edit. First off, thanks for the awards, it means a lot. And thank you to everyone offering your kind words and support. It has honestly been really difficult this past year, and at times I really do struggle, but I have to stay strong. My 2 little girls depend on me so much, and the support everyone has shown is truly the best. Some extra notes. Amy was pulled out of school at 10, a few months after I left home. She was kept isolated in her room and had very little meaningful contact. Also, I'm not going to share a photo of Lickety Split as she is a very recognizable dog, and not everyone who has contact with Amy and her dog knows the full story. So I'd rather not draw links between this story and her real day-to-day life as she struggles with it enough. Edit 2. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thank you for all the awards, and sorry if I don't get back to some people. Also, I'm meeting back up with my mother later to talk to her about the possibility of seeing the girls in the future. Once Amy is a lot more stable and Liza is old enough to understand what I saved her from, the decision will be entirely theirs. Edit 3. Answering the commonly asked questions to save me from repeating them. Yes, I was groomed too, but much differently. I was taught I could treat the woman in my family how I wanted, but I was never really a violent person or sexually driven. I was a jerk, and although I have anger issues at times, taking it out on other people is not something I ever saw as effective. My focus was more on my studies. Some of the other men in my family were the same and were never really abusive. Unfortunately, it never really clicked in my head that if I was being taught that, they would probably teach my sisters the same stuff. I blame myself because of how long Amy suffered and do my best to make amends for it by showing her love no one else cared to do. About a month later, OP provided an update regarding his family. There was another update post before this one, but I decided to skip that one since it wasn't directly related to his family. This update post is titled, "Entitled Family Attempts to Dognap My Sister's Service Dog." So this is the second of my 3 encounters with entitled parents that relate to my little sister's service dog. I'm sorry it took so long to get out. More issues with my mom have risen lately, and I am a single potato caring for 2 needy tater tots. I do have 2 other stories. The first explains how I came into the custody of my beautiful little sisters after my parents allowed the elder of 2 to be physically, mentally, and abused for 6 years. And the other had a brief encounter with entitled parents who didn't believe my sister needed a service dog because she had mental illnesses. I'll link them at the bottom for convenience. I'm also far from the best storyteller or writer in general, so bear with me. I do my best to get Amy outside for at least an hour a day, and this normally involves taking her service dog for a leisure walk as a family. She enjoys it and is accustomed to it at this point. On this particular day, a new playground had just opened up nearby, so I thought it might be fun to take my girls somewhere different. Since Amy likes to play fetch with Lickety Split, her service dog, I made sure to look into the rules regarding off-lead dogs. As a service dog, she's allowed pretty much everywhere if she has a lead and vest on and isn't disturbing the peace. There was a nearby field where off-lead dogs were permitted, but the area around the playground only allowed on-lead dogs, which is normal for my area. So armed with doggy poop bags, sunscreen, water, and Lickety Split's vest and lead, we drive down to the new park. New areas make Amy anxious, so we walk around a bit to help her understand where everything is. During this time, Lickety Split has her vest and lead on, dutifully walking at Amy's pace like the best doggo she is. There are quite a few little kids around and we don't want them distracting her. Most seem to understand what Lickety Split's vest means. However, one kid in particular, whom we'll dub LEG or Little Entitled Girl, approaches and asks to play with Lickety Split. Amy has selective mutism, meaning she can't talk in many situations. I explain that Lickety Split is working right now and can't be distracted. Still, I point to the field and say we might be playing there later if Amy feels up to it. She normally doesn't mind other people throwing the ball as long as they don't actually touch Lickety Split or her. Leg huffs and says that dogs are for playing, not working. I ask her if she's ever seen police dogs on TV or anything, to which she hesitantly replies yes. I explained there are different types of working dogs. Lickety Split's job is to take care of my sister because she gets frightened very easily, and her dog makes sure she doesn't get hurt if she gets scared. Leg then turns to Amy, who is getting a bit fidgety and keeps tugging on my shirt. This is her silent signal that she wants to move away from this. Meanwhile, Lickety Split is in her alert stance. She does this when she has a feeling something around could trigger Amy or cause her harm. Leg then throws her arms up and shouts "boo," which of course causes her to jump and hide behind me, starting to cry. Amy, even to this day, is very timid and doesn't cope well in strange environments with loud noises and sudden movements towards her. The Leg starts laughing and calls Amy Liza, who is very protective of her big sister, then pushes the girl and scolds her for being mean. I decide that we've all had enough of this girl and hurry my sisters along to find somewhere for Amy to calm down in peace. We find an area out of sight from the LEG, and I sit Amy down on a bench in the shade where I can calm her down before deciding if we should go home. Thankfully, she wasn't too bad as far as her anxiety attacks go. She was just breathing heavily, hot, and crying quietly. I asked her if she wanted to go home, but she declined and asked we stay away from the LEG because Liza still wanted to play in the playground. She said she didn't want Lickety Split off her lead. I'm hesitant, but I agree. Amy is trying to overcome her anxiety and sometimes wants to push herself out of her comfort zone. I would have to closely monitor her and ensure she isn't pushing herself too hard. The next little while is quiet. Liza is playing in the playground while Amy and I sit in the shade. Lickety Split is lying beneath the bench and Amy is reading a book. As you'd expect, more kids came to ask to give pats to our dog, but I politely turned them away with no issue. The LEG was nowhere to be seen. Or so I thought. Leg comes running up to Amy and me with her mother in tow, jabbing her finger at me while blabbering about animal abuse. Now, most of my attention was on my sister rather than what this lady was saying, so the conversation wasn't exactly word for word. The mother looks me up and down as if I had no business being in the area. My suburb is the next one over and considered slightly higher class. She has asked if Lickety Split is my dog. I explained how Lickety Split is in my name, but she is registered as Amy's service dog. In Australia, if you are under 18, parents or guardians are considered the owner of a dog. Lickety Split's ownership will be transferred to Amy once she turns 1. The parent gave me a look as if I hit her child. She then snarls at me something along the lines of, "How dare you make an innocent animal work and brainwash it into being able to do nothing more than follow your demand." I shrugged and told her that she was entitled to that opinion and asked her to leave as she was upsetting Amy. She then demands I hand the dog over to her, as a dog as spectacular looking as mine should not be forced into slavery. I give a simple nope and wave her off. Surprisingly, she leaves with her daughter, complaining about how she wants a well-behaved dog to sit like Lickety Split does. About half an hour passed and we were packing to leave. Amy quietly asks if we can throw the ball just a little for Lickety Split because she doesn't feel it's fair for her dog to miss out on the fun. So we headed back to the field and removed Lickety Split's lead and vest after checking for the girl or her mother. Side note, her dog tags also say that she is a service dog, as well as have my name, address, and phone number on them. This will be important later. We begin a small session of fetch with Lickety Split, taking turns throwing the ball as we usually do. Now, the park is set up so the field is right next to the car park, with a row of bushes separating the two. The area we were standing in had a few trees shading some picnic tables. As Liza is taking her turn to throw the ball, it hits a tree and bounces through the bushes. Lickety chases after it, and I tell my sisters to stay put while I follow just to make sure she doesn't end up on the road. Despite Liza's throw not being too hard, Lickety Split wasn't directly behind the bushes like I thought she'd be. In fact, I couldn't immediately find her after passing the bushes. I looked around for a moment before hearing Lickety Split's distressed barking and bolt into the car park. I find a family of 5 attempting to wrestle Lickety Split into the back of their car. The family included LEG, her mother, her father, a boy, and an older girl. The father was holding Lickety Split's jaw shut while the children were attempting to move her into the trunk of the car. My dog was not making it easy for them, and since the mother seemed to refuse to get close and the father was fighting to keep her head under control, they were struggling quite a bit. I yelled at them to let Lickety Split go, and several things happened in quick succession. The dad lost his grip on Lickety Split's head while the 2 girls jumped back, leaving the boy holding her hind legs off the ground. Lickety Split barked several times before the dad again tried to keep her muzzle shut, which she responded to by biting his arm and flinging herself at the boy. She snapped at him until she managed to land a bite on his ankle and bolt to my side. I grabbed her collar and yelled several obscenities at the family for attempting to steal my dog. At this time, a security man arrived, explaining how someone had reported an incident and asking what was happening. At this time, Amy and Liza had also come looking for me. Amy was on the brink of a panic attack, and Lickety strained against my grip to get to Amy, so I let her go. I told Amy and Liza to quickly put her vest and lead back on. The dad is now yelling at the security about how they found what they had assumed was an abandoned dog. They were planning on taking it to a shelter to adopt the poor thing when I appeared and beat the dog until she was so scared it bit him and his son. Now he was demanding the dog be put down immediately. The security looks over at Lickety Split, who was taking a defensive stance in front of my sisters and snarling at the family before looking at me and asking what my side of the story was. Thinking this could take a while, I asked him to hold on a moment while I moved my sisters and Lickety Split off the road and into the shade. Amy was having a panic attack at the prospect of her dog being put down and sobbing for me to protect her dog. At this point, I just wanted to get her home, where it was much easier to calm her down. So I turned back to the man and the family and explained the misthrown ball. I'd come to make sure my dog didn't end up on the road, and I found the family attempting to steal my sister's service dog when the mom interrupted. That's proof he abuses the dog. No dog should be made to work. The man then pauses before he states that his grandma has a guide dog because she's going blind. That made the family pause. The man turns to the kids and asks if they were trying to move the dog in the car. The older girls confirm this. The man then asks if they waited to see if anyone claimed the dog. The girl shook her head, and the mom then claimed the dog had no tags. I point out Lickety Split's beautiful handmade, bright purple and blue collar, stating it has my phone number and address on it. I didn't even care about pressing charges for the attempted dog napping. I just wanted to get Amy home as she was really struggling to calm down. Thankfully, he understood. He took my details and explained this would most likely go to the police as my dog had bitten 2 people. I wasn't too worried about this as my state law says that if a dog bites or attacks someone, it would be put down unless it was provoked to do so. He would make sure to save all security footage as evidence as he could clearly see I cared for my dog and family. He let me go but warned me that Lickety Split must be kept in my name and her residence can't change, or it would have worse legal repercussions. I assured him we weren't going anywhere before ushering my sisters to my car to get home. I left the parking lot and drove to another at a sports field close by before trying to calm Amy down. We went through our normal method of grounding her before giving cuddles and talking her down from her panic attack. She was still shaky when I pulled away, but I wanted to get her home where she could lie down and relax. So she just cuddled the toy she had brought and her dog the whole way home while crying softly. We ordered dinner from a restaurant and watched a movie together, snuggled up in the pull-out lounge. The girls both fell asleep there, and I let them be. This was before Amy was back in school, but she had tutoring the next day. I decided to call it off since she was still upset. The police did get in contact with me about Lickety Split biting 2 people, but confirmed that they had seen the security footage and agreed that the situation had provoked Lickety Split to do so. There was also a whole court procedure where the family was adamant the attack was unprovoked. They claimed they were trying to help what they thought was a stray dog, but one of the cameras had caught a clear display of Lickety Split's collar, which had all my information. Not to mention that the mom and girl had seen my sister and me twice that day, and cameras had also caught them. The parents were fined and given community service, and since I just wanted it to be over, I didn't press further, but we haven't been back to that park since. That whole interaction was just baffling. I had heard of people who steal dogs in the past, but hearing them try to lie about it afterward was infuriating. I understand that OP just wanted to end the situation, but I definitely would have pressed charges. Teaching that family a lesson probably would have been a service to everyone they encounter in the future. The final update was made directly to OP's account, and it was created several months after the last post. It says, "Sorry I've disappeared on everyone. Things got super busy over Christmas and the past few months in general. I haven't even logged on to Reddit in a while. The thought came to me the other day, so I thought I'd give everyone who was curious an update on myself and the girls. First off, we're all doing great. Amy's therapy has been going well and she's becoming more comfortable in social settings. She still has selective mutism, but it's been improving. She's now officially a completely healthy kid in physical terms, having completed the last of her medical procedures and physio at the end of January. She had a lot of issues with her bones initially, as well as being malnourished, but that's all fixed now. She's showing a lot more emotion. She actively seeks out and shows affection towards those she trusts and has fewer nightmares than she did a few months ago. Amy still needs regular therapy, but her therapist has praised her progress. Her school work has also been going well. I've had a few people ask how Amy keeps up, and to put it simply, she doesn't. Amy's primary focus at school is to learn to socialize. There is no pressure for her to keep up their grades or do well on tests. That stuff can be worked on later, and even her teachers give her easier work despite already being 2 years below her age-appropriate year. Liza is doing well in school too. She seems to have taken after me since she is very smart and near the top of her grade. I'm very proud. Since my last update here, I've sat down with her and gone a bit more into detail about what was happening when she was with her parents as she started requesting to see them again. If it were up to me, that would never ever happen, but it's her right to choose once she's old enough. I'll slowly tell her more about what was happening. Only when she has the whole story will I let her choose if she wants supervised visits with her parents. I finished my studies for my field of work and got promoted pretty quickly once I qualified. This allows me to work at home more often and be able to spend more time with my girls. I've also fixed a lot of my anger issues, and it's been quite a while since my last outburst. We've also moved towards the end of September, and ever since, we've had no negative confrontations with entitled parents. The girls still go to the same school, and our new house has a bigger backyard, which Lickety Split loves. That's about all the important information I can think of right now. I am happy to answer more questions in the comments. Thank you everyone for the support, and I'll hopefully get around to the last story of entitled parents being entitled over Lickety Split soon. Message from Amy. Thank you for being friendly and helpful with my brother and saying nice things to Liza and me. Potato would read them to us and tell us how many people wished us well. It was very nice of everyone. Thank you for being nice, and I hope you all have a nice day. It's amazing to hear that all three, as well as their dog, are doing well right now, but I'm a bit worried that Liza might go through with meeting her parents down the road. That's obviously her decision to make, but I can't see anything beneficial coming out of that meeting. While I'm really happy that she didn't have to go through the same level of abuse as her sister, I feel that she doesn't realize just how bad her parents were. Hopefully, Liza will speak to her sister and ask about their parents first before actually making such a decision. And I'd like to think that Amy will be in a better place by then, where she feels comfortable enough to dig back into those past memories.